Hey Fitheads, today we talk with Brian and Ryan from Living Prana, which are functional food, pancakes, and waffles. So we learn a lot about what functional food is and why some foods are not functional, and I'm probably ingesting them.
Yeah, functional foods is a good way of saying what we've sort of been talking about anecdotally, I guess. Like functional foods is foods that give positive effects to your body. Yeah. Well, they have added things that are actually good for you that don't, versus regular crap foods, which are like you eat a sandwich, you fall asleep immediately. Or I guess I eat a sandwich, I fall asleep immediately. Everyone's different.
Yeah, I think about it like I'm going to eat this garbage and my body will filter said garbage versus eating something that will uplift my body.
Yes. Functional food. I guess, positive food. That's a better, well, I don't know, whatever. We'll talk to the market gurus behind behind the earth. But it was fun. We talked a lot about adaptogens and superfoods. We talked about how they started this thing, which is basically a big hangover. I mean, if a hangover isn't the direct cause of all of the human greatest innovations, I don't know what is. Do you know what I mean?
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Brian and Ryan, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so glad to have you. I already screwed up your names via email, by the way. Does that happen a lot?
There's some crossover. Yeah, we definitely get to encounter it's also easy for people to remember our names too. Brian, Ryan, they can kind of keep it intact. Right. But yeah, there can be some mishaps here and there.
Yeah, we're making it a shtick. Brian and Ryan, the pancake guys. It's just like if you lump it all together, then they see us as one unit.
You guys have the worst couple name. Because it's just right.
Yeah, you can't really combine it to make something like Bradgelina.
Right, we naturally, Brian has that. He already had me. He was just waiting for me to show up.
The one differentiating factor is how I spell it. So like there is no Y in my name, so you get a little bit there.
That's true. And it did, however, lend to his perfect, his moniker is Brain Man, and mine's Prana Man. With our products, Prana Cakes and Brain Cakes, it was a natural fit. And the spell check, if you ever spell Brian, it'll often default to Brain. And he's had that his whole life. So
it's been my whole life. People write my name Brain. It still happens to this day. Like it was one thing when it happened in like middle school and even maybe a little into high school via text message. It still happens to this day. And people just write my name Brain. Maybe I would say not 1 in 5, but somewhere between 1 and 5, probably 1 in 10% of the time. I get that. I just laugh.
Right. I don't want to call myself a genius, but everyone else seems to.
You're going to do it for me. Thank you.
I love that it fits perfectly with Brain Cakes.
Yes, absolutely.
It does. It was a natural fit.
Okay. I do want to hear about how you guys met and the whole like origin story, but I guess we should start with the hard-hitting questions. What is functional food?
I'll take this.
Really drilling down on us here.
Yeah, let's go right after it. Well, functional food as a category of what we can consume is foods that not only provide nutrition, but actually enhance or elevate our game, our physical performance, our mental performance. So functional foods take it to the next level where we're actually getting something more than just energy from our foods.
Yeah, I think, value beyond the nutritional panel effectively. And it came out of Japan back in the 80s. So it's been a term that was popular for a while and then had cycled out. And then now really essentially since COVID came and hit and people's awareness around what's going into my body, how am I optimizing my life? This awareness around functional food just come back, and we're in the middle of this revolution and this awakening. It's one of the most studied areas within food and nutrition sciences today.
So on the spectrum of food, it's like fast food and then some sort of like middle neutral where it's just calories, and then functional food is here where it's doing something else magical.
Yeah.
The superhuman food. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Perfect.
And what types of things fall into this superhuman category?
Well, I think staying in that key term super, right? So superfoods, foods that are nutrient dense, but also, especially when they work in combination with one another or with adaptogens being another kind of functional food, it lends itself to optimizing not just the ingredient itself, but I should say it optimizes the benefits of the ingredients. And so you're getting more value than just even, like Brian said, what's on the nutritional label, combining them, which is what we kind of found and worked our way into, they're complementary to each other. And so that kind of went into another direction, but basically it's superfoods, adaptogens, and things that your body is deriving fuel from. Not just, it's more complex. So your body's getting fuel throughout the day, as opposed to, say, like a simple carb or a simple sugar. We absorb it quick, glucose levels go up, and suddenly now we're going to feel depleted on the other side of that. Functional foods are part of the more complex carbohydrate categories, or different complex foods that allow the body to sustain energy from the nutrients you're putting in over a longer term.
Max and I are quite familiar with glucose spikes.
Very. Yeah, I heard you talking about that on the episode with the ketones founder, Ketones IV, and that whole consideration around the energy. Yeah, mushrooms as well, to add onto the list of great functional foods that are seemingly in vogue right now. That are,
oh my God,
a renaissance.
They're so popular. That's what I wrote down. One of these questions was, why does everyone love mushrooms right now so much?
and it's more than just what a lot of people are expecting to say of, there's that whole, the psychedelic, the stoner version of like, mushrooms are key, they're going to change your life. That it's more than that. There is some truly amazing healing properties with mushrooms, and things like the antioxidants you get that can reduce the impact of aging. The actual physical changes that happen to the DNA of our cells that erode over time, mushrooms can help slow that down. Brain and heart health, immunity, natural energy, the list goes on. And this is still, it's an emerging science. The benefits are still being studied. There's been a lot of studies being done in animals and in mice. They're starting to occur in humans as well. I feel like it's the kind of thing where you're taking it day to day and you really feel the benefit. I've been supplementing with lion's mane and a combination of an immunity mushroom since COVID hit, basically. And my sharpness, the reduction in brain fog, the way in which I wake up alert, my cognition, and everywhere, my health too. And I will say, knock on wood, Ryan and I laugh about this, but I have not. I've been fortunate enough. Like, I never fell sick with COVID, and I believe that the mushrooms that I'm taking, in addition to zinc, D, and C, and other vitamins, I think the combination of those had a big contributing factor to that.
Interesting. The fact that you can feel a difference.
That's another thing. Mushrooms is one of those things where it seems like people are like, well, it's not one of those, you take it and then you feel better in an hour, like with ibuprofen or whatever. Everyone always says, you have to have a sort of couple of days and a couple of weeks in of sustain. How long are we talking? How long do I have to take some mushrooms before I feel something?
How many hero doses do I need before it comes through?
Exactly.
How many dirties?
Well, because I think, unfortunately, the question is, how many jars do I have to buy? I think that's what people are, a lot of people.
Or how long do I have to film till I have a video that's like, look, I transformed.
How long is this time lapse?
The easy answer is as many as it takes.
Yeah.
And, everyone's constitution is unique, right? So one thing I might take and feel, someone else might not even have a clue is impacting them. I think the impact is probably there regardless. And over time, they do say that these, the way the mycelial network works is in terms of how the mushrooms are designed and constructed is they're forming a network in the system, and so that takes time. And but the benefits, as Brian was saying, it's still an emerging, developing study on what these benefits are, to get empirical evidence to support these claims. But there's, for me personally, in terms of my experience, and Brian gave his with immunity and his seemingly impenetrable system to COVID, which I don't have that same claim. And in fact, he was with me when I got it. So I'm convinced he is Brain Man. He is superhuman.
I was staying at Ryan's place. We sat next to each other at a friend's gathering. We shared, we rode in the car together with windows closed, all the things.
That is a prescription for COVID. And you didn't get it.
Did not. And to my point, I was just going to say, to finish the thought around, so I don't get too distracted as I can want to do sometimes. It's just that for me, the benefits have become apparent, as Brian was describing, waking up, feeling clear, waking up with a sense, or especially if I'll have them in the morning, as I do every morning, just sense of cognitive operative function that is, to me, obvious, especially if I go for a period of time without them, which has happened in travels and in moments. I've noticed the difference.
So now you just have like a separate suitcase full of pancakes wherever you go.
But do we have some stories to share about traveling with pancakes? But
it's great. TSA have become huge fans.
We're best friends now. It's really
what's
wild.
This powder in bags, guys? What
Bring an entire suitcase. What are you guys trafficking here?
Allie, we just met in LA at that #Paid event. So I'm back in Hawaii now, which is where I moved when COVID hit. And so we're launching within some cafes and some retail stores over here. And I effectively smuggled 120 pounds of pancakes through the airport in 2 suitcases. So there's 70 pounds of product, about 30 pounds of just loose powder that absolutely looks like drugs.
That's a hero dose.
It's a real dose. And every time I go through security now, I just know to pack extra time. And recently also, of when we went into manufacturing, our manufacturer is in Minnesota. So I flew out there to see the product, getting in the bag for the first time, touch and feel it, and all of that great, exciting things that go on when you're getting into a product for the first time. And so how are we going to test the product to make sure that they formulated this correctly? We've got to cook waffles. So in my carry-on, I packed a waffle maker, and then I also had bags of loose mix. And so the story got even weirder through TSA when they pull it out and they're holding this bag of grayish, darkish mix that I'm swearing is not drugs. And then they see a waffle iron in there, and not a small one, like the full Belgian size, big, full-stack Belgian waffle maker. They look at me like, you've got a serious problem.
Just plug it in.
Yeah.
You guys hungry?
Exactly.
Guys, I knew this day, this meeting was going to come. So let's go. You got some time, pull you off the line. We'll make some waffles.
So that's a hack, right? If you're trying to smuggle something, just bring a waffle maker as
Make
a
it
decoy.
so blatantly obvious that they'll never question you. Just bring a waffle maker.
Really
You just changed the game of drug trafficking forever, Brian, right there.
It's actually a really convenient pivot. We wanted to pivot the podcast towards drug smuggling.
Here it is.
So that's a really good thing. Thank you so much.
And now, right at
You laughed at that one too.
So going back to mushrooms, though, I mean, I just only speak to my personal experience, and I told you a little bit about my beliefs with respect to COVID and immunity. I feel like I started feeling a change after about 3 months. And that's supplementing with every day, taking somewhere between 2 and 4 grams total of mushrooms a day. And I felt that was there. Then on the other side of the spectrum, the first time that I made our brain cakes, which has both lion's mane and cordyceps in there, was last summer here in Hawaii. And after about 15 minutes of I had like 3 good sized pancakes, maybe a serving and a half. And I felt dialed in. I felt clear. I felt noise surrounding me dissipate. And I called Ryan. I had this moment of, wow, these really work. And so there is an element of, you can feel that immediate impact. It's not all long-term. And it also absolutely has to do with your own, body chemistry and the gut, the microbiome. I mean, there's so much at play.
Right. And just like your, proprioception, or your awareness of your own internal workings too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the phrase "wake up alert" is just like baffling to me.
Yeah, totally agree.
Do you guys drink coffee?
Well, it's a good question considering what inspired the creation of Brain Cakes to begin with. So I found I've had a history of enjoying and still do enjoy it, certainly as a flavor, but I found it made me more anxious, and I was feeling a spike in emotion. Like my sense of irritability got a little bit more prevalent. And so I decided to cut coffee, but I really wanted the mental stimulus for my morning. And that, lo and behold, was the impetus for Brain Cakes, was just finding the right nootropics and adaptogens and superfoods to combine to give me what I wanted that I was getting from coffee and take out the caffeine.
Whoa, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are potent. I used to be a heavy coffee drinker. I was drinking somewhere between 3 and 5 cups a day. I consider that heavy. Yeah.
Heavy.
And that was heavy. And I moved to Maui. And as we were working, Ryan and I were working more closely with the pancakes, started experimenting with the mushrooms and the adaptogens, and my desire for caffeine, for coffee at least, has really dissipated.
Interesting. Max seems
Yeah, that's so foreign. I'm just like, I can't even, I'm on that like pre-workout caffeine blow, and then a couple straight black cups of coffee, and then an afternoon espresso. Like I'm on the total, some people it really freaks me out a little bit.
I know it well, believe me, I do. I've appreciated caffeine a great deal. I'm also a writer, and so it always seemed like the necessary kind of kickstart to the mental cognition. And it's amazing. I read a book, Why We Sleep. And I listened to an Audible, and in that I saw the PDF of a study they did with spiders, where they administered spiders caffeine, cannabis, cocaine, LSD. I think those are the 4. And then the webs that they wove on those substances. And as a writer, spiders are kind of the go-to totem. They're weaving the words and the pattern of the world. And when I saw the pattern for caffeine, I was shocked, because it looks like a shattered piece of just glass got shattered and went every direction. And LSD is just really wicked, like straight lines with no crossovers, just like little circles of line. It's an incredible visual to look at. But I saw the caffeine in particular, and I was a little bit taken aback is that what my brain's doing? And is that really enhancing my capacity to weave a story together or tell, a cohesive story? So that genuinely was one of the bigger kicks for me to re-examine my relationship with caffeine. No offense, Max. I don't want to, ruin your day or anything, but yeah.
That's cool. I'm just going to go jump off a building. That's exactly, that is to a T. My shattered glass is my thought process. That's a very good admit. That's great. Thanks.
Here to help.
Well, you guys touched on this a little, like the combination of ingredients, right? You never hear just like, oh yeah, I take lion's mane and it does this. It's always like a bunch of different things kind of mixed together. Can you talk about how they enhance each other?
Yeah, I'll touch on that. I think Brian will add to it as well. The purpose of adaptogens in general is to reduce stress, to take the body's, let's say, if it's an excessive cortisol release based on a high stress constitution, it'll reduce cortisol levels. On the flip side, if you're suffering from chronic fatigue, it'll do the opposite and increase cortisol to help lift the energy. So it's adaptogenic, meaning it's going to meet your system where it's at and give it. When you take a physiological environment and you relax it, what you're going to be able to then do with the superfoods that are combined is get more nutrients, because your body has the bioavailability to receive those nutrients because it's not contracted in a stress state. So I don't know the exact biochemistry beyond that, but I can say that the combination of the two is what allows the superfoods themselves to be all the more enhanced when you consume them.
Interesting. Okay. And combined with fiber. Well, you were talking about like the long-term effects, right? Is that play into it? Because when I think about, stopping a spike or making my nutrition sort of extended out, that's what fiber is the only thing I think of.
Yeah, fiber is huge for that. And as we think about the balancing the ingredients, or even the fact that we use coconut sugar as part of one of our flavor levers with respect to balancing some of the sharpness of the superfoods, how do you mitigate what could be spikes coming from that? And something like buckwheat and chia, which are two of our primary flours, are very high in fiber. And our serving gets you somewhere to the tune of 15 to 18% of your daily value of fiber, from our pancakes. And that's one that it not only prevents the spikes, but helps keeps that satiated feeling. You referenced going vegan recently, and the chia.
It's not recent. It's been forever. Okay.
Yeah.
It's been like four whole months.
Wow. Lifetimes right there. Amazing.
Frankly, we made it pretty far into the episode without Allie mentioning that she's vegan. So that's a win for us. Congratulations.
I see the impact it's had on your life. Like, wow, I've lived decades in this.
There you go.
But the chia, I mean, as it expands in your stomach, it's high in fiber content, and it helps keep that satiated feeling, as your post meal. So you're able to stay fuller, feeling satisfied longer without cravings for other food.
Is there a specific reason you guys go ahead?
On your website, you have a pretty impressive list of what's in and what you put in, and superfoods, adaptogens. Can you talk us through like which were the ones where you were like, well, we have to do this for sure, and which were the ones maybe that didn't make the cut, or maybe even any ingredients that you now put in that you were like sort of surprised by when you were still working out your formulas and stuff?
It's a great question. I'll start with where it all began. And so the whole reason that Prana Cakes even exists is I was at Burning Man in 2017 and had a particularly incredible 24-hour period of a lot of dancing and a lot of sun. I saw the sunrise and then some, get back to my trailer, and I'm prone to, starting my day with a smoothie, and I know my superfoods and I know the adaptogens I want to include. And I didn't have a blender, but I did have all those superfoods, and I had a pancake mix. And so I decided to just throw it together and hope it tasted good enough to palate. And it tasted incredible. And I ended up feeding my camp, and we had this just incredible experience, all of us that day, of having this incredible amount of energy after being so extraordinarily depleted. So then it kind of dawned on me, and so in answer to your question in kind of long form there, I recognize that maca, ashwagandha, cacao, and spirulina were kind of a quadruple whammy that served different benefits and complemented one another, not just in their function, but in their flavor. Spirulina is a hard one to really manage relative to it's a blue-green algae, right? So it's got this incredibly earthy kind of, I don't know if it categorically is quite like bitter, but it definitely has that strong flavor. And for reasons that I'm grateful for, cacao, especially if you add banana, which is its own kind of flavor win to really bring those three to life. But cacao and spirulina bring together something in a flavor profile that kind of mitigates each other's sharpness. It's like a complementary, you complete me relationship kind of thing. It's a very Jerry Maguire moment for me there on the playa. And then another one to add in is that's relevant is cinnamon. In addition to some extraordinary health benefits, also as a flavor just kind of spins it all into motion in this way. Even when we're, we've been doing all these events, as Brian was talking about, and we've been making mix, we're making them in large portions. We have our product is made at a co-packer and sold online, but when we're doing events and we're making 50 plus pounds of mix, and the mix that Brian flew back to Hawaii with, every time I add cinnamon to the mix, as it's building, the entire thing changes. It's like this, it just visually as well as energetically, I'm relating to it like, whoa, you just did something that wasn't there before. So that's kind of a fun plug for cinnamon relative to your question of what needs to be there. And, Brian and I'll let Brian kind of continue forward on this one, because when he came to LA after we met and the brotherhood we formed through the way in which we met, was this incredible process. That's a story we can put a pin in and come back to, because I want to finish your question. But while he was here, we really got to rework the ingredients on a level that it was kind of like I couldn't have gotten the ingredient list to where it is now without Brian and what he brought to the table. And so it was this incredible process of we had to collaborate to find the perfect alchemy of what is now Prana cakes and brain cakes. So Prana cakes have evolved since Burning Man, but I'll give it over to Brian to let him add some flavor to this, because it was a fun story for sure.
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible, and good segue. So I lead off with buckwheat, and this was a product of our process of working together. Ryan and I, after we met, we were in his kitchen. We're eating pancakes 5 days straight, as the V1 of Prana cakes and brain cakes existed, and woke up
solely pancakes, or
pretty much solely pancakes for 5 days straight.
This is like a Soylent situation. You used to replace everything with pancakes.
Exactly.
So we're like, if we're going to do it, we want to be in a place where we can really stand behind this product. And we were also recipe testing and tweaking and flavor and all of this, and still figuring out, the dose of the superfoods. So we're tinkering and we're eating pancakes all day. And after 5 days, we both woke up and incredibly bloated, like low energy. I was like, I couldn't get out of the bathroom quick. Like it was an experience. I was like, this can't, and it can't continue. And we looked at each other and we realized, well, the mix was already gluten-free. So where else is a source of digestion intolerance? And we realized it was the grains. And so we went to a place of research of what are the best grain-free flours, and where can we pack a great nutritional punch that also tastes good and will work from a consistency standpoint and will complement with the superfoods. And we tried a lot of different flours, and buckwheat is an absolute rock star. It not only flavor, texture, consistency, and then we talked about the protein and the fiber. So that and the chia are the opposite effect of what we experienced for 5 days. It definitely helps keep you regular. So that was a beautiful thing. And the cacao, the cinnamon that come together, where it could have been easy for us to just say, load up the coconut sugar so we can offset the flavor profile of the superfoods. But instead, we opted to dial in the cacao and the cinnamon, which have been beautiful on top of their health benefits. And I'd say lastly, one of my favorites that are in both mixes are cordyceps. And mushrooms have become such a big part of my life. But it's a fascinating species to me, all from which how they grow, where they exist, and the benefits as well. Like they've been used in Chinese medicine for depression, for anxiety, for things around heart health, diabetes. And then on top of it, a lot of studies around athletic performance, changes to VO2 max, stamina.
What?
Absolutely. It's still being studied. Like these things are ongoing, but it has been observed. There's been more, again, that's gone on within animals that are starting to be studied within humans. And cool. So that's been something that's kind of been called like athlete's mushroom. Also, it's got a phenomenal nickname, the Himalayan Viagra, because of its propensity to help us all perform better and stand up to the call and the mission as that time.
Love it.
So if you want to think about benefits there of the mushrooms, I can't think of any better, right? Performance, both in the gym and in the bedroom and in the kitchen. Trifecta.
It's trifecta to win.
I love that you guys had to overdose on pancakes to realize how you could improve.
We've had a few of those moments. There's been a lot of overdosing to get to where that's for sure.
Oh, but now we're in a place where Ryan and I both, we eat waffles or pancakes basically every day. They're ours because we know what's in them. We know what we've constituted, but effectively we're eating them every day and feeling, high energy, feeling really healthy. And it's not about dousing them in maple syrup and creating a whole unhealthy experience around it. It's conscious, healthy toppings in things that are like a power cake or otherwise that help elevate the day. But yeah, we're eating them every day.
Yeah, it's funny. Allie and I talk about all the time, like how we used to think breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And then for me, and I think for Allie a little bit also, like we sort of both came to the conclusion of like, why am I eating this huge cake-ish meal first thing in the morning with a bunch of sugar and like milk, like all this junk? And then we sort of cut it, but it really wasn't the timing or it was the content.
Yeah.
And that's what really swindled us.
Yeah, that's where Brian and I kind of landed our plane on when we developed Living Prana as a company. We realized that, we're going to take traditionally unhealthy foods and reconstitute the ingredients with functional foods and make them healthy. And suddenly now what was once an indulgence and a thing that might, cause you to fatigue and pass out afterwards is now this energy sustaining and uplifting process. And so you get what you want and you also get the benefits you need. And it's kind of a win-win that way.
The way you're talking about them energizing you, it almost makes me concerned that I should time when I eat them. Do you do that? Do you have suggestions? Should I not stack up some brain cakes at dinner because I'm trying to sleep soon?
It's a great question. It has to do with one's individual constitution. As Max was using his coffee habit as an example, somebody who had an afternoon espresso is probably going to jack their sleep if they have let's say a lower tolerance for that caffeine intake. And one thing about cacao which is in both ingredients, it contains theobromine, which is kind of like a caffeine alternative, and it does have a stimulant quality. In general, Brian and I haven't encountered that experience, nor have we had any real feedback. But I would say with brain cakes, one thing there are some stimulants in there. There's Siberian ginseng, there's the cordyceps, as Brian was talking about. So for me personally, I like the brain cakes in the morning. I love the prana cakes as a post-workout rejuvenation of the body. And I'll also sometimes just combine them into one mix and just make them both start my day. But as I did this morning, and we are developing a multitude of SKUs. There are going to be, a combination of more relaxing herbs that will be more purposeful for the evening intake. So I wouldn't say that anyone outright shouldn't eat them at night. I do and have no problem with them, but we all have a unique constitution. And to that end, there's nothing that's overtly stimulating either. In terms of, I would say, prana cakes in the evening, especially with the ashwagandha, which is a very relaxing adaptogen in that mix, with the exception of the cacao and the cordyceps that are in there. In general, I've had those in the evening and they make an amazing savory. I can throw olive oil and avocado, and a little truffle salt is one of my favorite go-tos lately. So we've also, developed these and discovered and are going to continue to move forward with how exceptional they are as bread alternatives. The gluten-free, grain-free, plant-based, just add water mix allows it to be the simple way to get that substance. You're talking about cakey in a sense, but a substance where you could throw it in, you can mix it with virtually anything savory and have a satisfying meal, but without the trade-offs of, let's say, a loaf of bread and where that can otherwise take you.
Loaf of bread. Yeah. Can we take a dump on Kodiak cakes right now? Because they're trying to corner the market on healthy pancakes. What are your thoughts?
I'll jump in. So there are a lot of quote unquote healthier for you pancake and waffle mixes or baking mixes out there. And what we wanted to provide was something that was novel, unique, and different from what's out there. So if you think about Kodiak cakes, their calling card largely is protein and whole grains. And that is kind of, as I think about them as a consumer, that is how I would identify with what their product and their brand, or at least their products, deliver. So we are fundamentally different, where we're going grain free, and we're of the belief that grains are, at least refined grains, are not great for you eaten in excess, where they cause significant inflammation. That has been studied, and inflammation is the source of substantially all of the chronic disease that occurs in our lives. So we believe going to a grain-free place was an important differentiator. And we don't enhance our mixes with protein powder. The protein that comes in there, you get about 7 grams of protein from the Prana cake, and call it 4 per serving in the brain cake. It's all coming naturally from the plants and from the earth. That's coming out of these ingredients. So differentiating factor. And then one other thing I'll say, maybe just generally around these healthier for you mixes, 2 things we've noticed that are common within these places are, one, the use of cane sugar, where we made the decision to use coconut sugar, and believe while it's still a sugar, it's naturally occurring. It is less of a spike on your blood sugar, and there are some benefits there, even though it's still sugar. And then there's a lot of cassava flour and almond flour used in these healthier for you mixes, which, while we've tried them and we made the choice not to use them, we didn't believe that the flavor profile was complementary, or the consistency, and really the nutritional value either. Something like cassava, my personal opinion is there's a lot of empty carbs there that doesn't provide a lot of benefit beyond the carbs that come from the flour and the starch of the origin. So there's a little bit of a comparison. We try not to speak out of church too much, but hopefully that at least scratches the surface on it. And also, I think here, as we've thought about this, the whole superfood concept of how are we helping bridge that gap between supplementation and whole foods? We think of the pancake and waffle as one medium to deliver health and nutrition that we're going to extend into other verticals as well.
Ooh, go on. Do we get the exclusive here? What's the next SKU, as you say?
Jello.
Yes, yellow. Well, so it's interesting you say that, and I don't want to steal Ryan's thunder, but we've designed this, call it the functional system, our first set of SKUs, based upon the balancing the body chakra system. And so each of those chakras have a color associated that all correlate to the rainbow. So you'll see Prana cakes are green, and you get that purple indigo from brain cakes. And this is deliberate in nature. So we're going to look to continue along that pattern, fill out superfood blends that balance the body in other ways.
And velvet.
So I'll let Ryan pick up from there, as the product guy, the guru, who created the origin, and just obviously we're not here to divulge all of our trade secrets, but we do want to get people excited.
Yeah.
Big Kodiak is listening right now, or stealing our ideas.
I respect that Brian handled that question beautifully and politically correctly, and I probably wouldn't have. So I'm grateful you answered that, Brian. But the just like the verticals we're talking about too, without, we're still in development and have some ideas that we don't want to just throw out yet because we're still in early phase. But working with qualitative values, like, for example, a calm cake would be something that's going to relax us in the evening and be a wonderful thing to have. Or if I'm stressed out and want to bring my nervous system back to a level of parasympathetic or homeostasis, we're working right now with what are the perfect combinations to bring about those different SKUs, just to kind of speak to that end. And that'll fall in that rainbow spectrum of the different chakras and what they represent. And to that end, we're approaching this as holistically as we can. I have a Chinese medical background as well. And so appreciating what herbs can do, that similar to Max's earlier question, how long does it take to work? Can you really tell? What do you feel? Like Chinese medicine, it's a very subtle science, but when you understand the energetics and you appreciate that there's an interconnectedness to, if I have a desired value and as a consumer, we're looking to try and meet a multitude of what we perceive to be relevant concerns in the world of health and wellness. And, the one thing, which is just, I'll jump on a soapbox a little off topic, but relevant to our question, is what we're finding, and both Brian and I having consumed these for as long as we have now on a regular basis, is the relative calm and the relative psychological health of a healthy gut biome and a healthy physiology is so incredibly relevant. And that brings it to a kind of, let's bring it to a topic in the world that I perceive to be kind of a DEFCON 5 situation, is mental health. And to acknowledge that is inescapable from the physiological imbalances that our Western American standard diet is perpetuating, in my opinion. And how can we bring the same foods, the same things we're accustomed to as a culture, and make it healthy, benefit the body, benefit the mind, benefit the collective? And suddenly, can we in fact inform, if only subtly or not so subtly, peace on earth? Can we help support people finding balance in their body and their entire physiological and psychological well-being? It's become a much bigger mission than I originally, ever imagined it could be, relative to the potential impact of genuinely guiding people to look at that a little bit more, and then offering alternatives to what's out there.
Peace on earth through pancakes. You heard it here, folks.
Exclusive.
Done. I love it. We now have a mission. Great. An even greater mission.
Now what makes me feel dumb, my follow-up question was, I'm going to need you to make hangover pancakes real quick. Can we get a formulation for that?
The morning after pancake. Well, I guess that has a whole other thing going on.
I mean, it's not too dissimilar to the origin story of Prana cakes and Burning Man.
That's true. And, to that end, he makes a very valid point. I mean, I was among other things hungover, and I was so cooked after, I don't know. Have you guys been to Burning Man?
No.
But no. All right.
I've seen the poster.
You've seen the poster, But did you watch the movie? That's the question. I won't say you should or shouldn't. That's an individual calling for sure. But the experience, let's say, of a bender kind of weekend, and just being completely depleted in an environment that is, from a climate standpoint, really intense. It's dry, it's hot, it's a lot of things. You're inhaling a lot of dust, and so your system is processing a lot more than it's accustomed to, and therefore is all the more depleted. And that isn't dissimilar to, let's say, an all-night bender and waking up in the morning and realizing like my body is not happy. And one way to support that is to put in, let's say, just the buckwheat, chia, arrowroot alone is going to help absorb some of the toxins, to help it process out. And then you're getting superfoods to help nurture the body back to adrenals that might be completely taxed, and other benefits that our bodies need when we've taken them too far in a given direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If since we're all getting on soapboxes here, one of my pet peeves is when people have hangovers and they're like, oh, you know what I need is just like a greasy burger, or you know what I need is like just some salt, and I'm like, no, you don't. I mean, obviously everyone's different and placebo effect, blah, 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 but it's so nice to talk to people who are like, no, you need things that are good for your body.
Right. Well, I want to
restore it. Yeah.
I want to piggyback on that because, in terms of the body's homeostasis, the body craves what it knows, not what it needs. If I've taken it to an acidic place, I'm craving sugar. I'm craving alcohol, coffee, things that'll take my body more acidic because it's what it knows. And so to have an awareness of the body that, wait, if I'm craving a greasy hamburger the next morning, chances are I'm only going to just perpetuate the problem. Or they say, the hair of the dog, right? Have another drink. Well, yeah, it'll lighten the load you're feeling, but is it going to benefit you getting back to balance? Obviously not,
Interesting.
So there's that.
Hair of the dog was always like, so you're just light alcoholic. Okay.
Exactly.
You're just
buying alcohol.
Already going.
Sure, it works.
Not having to face reality in this moment.
Yeah, it's a time issue.
So do you guys drink now, or do you abstain?
I'd say seldomly. It's not a full abstinence for me. I'll enjoy a mezcal or a nice wine on occasion, or a beer, but it is more on occasion. And then my move to Hawaii really was a big shift in that, in where I've been focusing more on.
Because Hawaiian beers are the worst. Ugh.
So bad.
There's a couple of good ones here.
Okay.
There's a couple of good ones on Maui, I will say.
Aloha Microbrewery. Yeah.
There's one over in Kihei, Maui Brewing Co. So when you do come out and visit, we'll take a trip there. They've got great live music, which I love live music, and you can enjoy some of those. So it's seldom for me, and it's just in moderation.
And I don't hardline no on anything. I think that, like Brian, especially if the event is worthy of such celebration, libations add what they add. And it's just a question too of knowing that if I'm going to do anything, like anything that has an effect has a side effect. That's a simple awareness you can bring. And so then if I know in advance, I'm going to do A, B, or C, I'll make sure I have X, Y, and Z to help bring balance back in, like hydrating the body before you go to bed. If you do choose to take alcohol to a larger intake than a simple social moment, and making sure that my body's going to have what it needs to process this with as limited an impact as possible. It's kind of where I come from.
Yeah, solid. It makes sense. Max is like,
it's funny though. For so long in life, this is what was defined as having fun and the sort of social gold standard, going out and having drinks. And now, as at least I've gotten into my mid and late 30s, it's about how am I optimizing my body? How am I taking care of my body? How am I finding my best happiness and my mindfulness, and things that have just, I guess, shifted in the pecking order of priorities.
Yeah, it seems like anybody who sort of gets into what interests us on this podcast then realizes that alcohol is not the top of the pecking order anymore. Or just look at your HRV once and it's like, oh, right, I should never do that again.
I saw that. I used to wear, I don't do it every night anymore, but I was wearing my Apple Watch and tracking that for around the COVID time. And I was really starting to prioritize my sleep and getting it in more regularity. And I noticed a couple of times the plummet and the changes in the stats on nights when I would drink. And my eyes popped open in the morning. I was like, wow, I actually now see tangible data, and I'm all about data and doing research. I now see what it does to my body. And that was a big part of me saying, okay, there's going to be a shift here. And it's been generational in my family. My dad's a heavy drinker. My grandfather, it's been a long line. I'm half Irish. It's been there for a while, but that spoke loudly enough to me where I said, not me anymore.
Right. Yeah. And just to shift to something a little heavier, even only because I'm super interested in this, Ryan, your history with severe mold infestation. Can you just speak? I mean, that's probably hard to talk a little on that, but it seems like an interesting part of your origin story I wanted to hear.
Sure. Yeah, I have an appreciation for it relative to where we are now with Living Prana too, because that was what opened me up to what functional foods really are. And so the short version of it is I'm living in a guest house, and unbeknownst to me, I'm 10 feet from my head is this wall that's full of black mold, and I'm inhaling it on the daily. And I went from having this really crazy, thick, long mane of hair to just like losing my hair in a really rapid, and I didn't know what was going on. I was meanwhile basically going crazy and began to have these really intense suicidal ideations. And it was just this spiral, and it was really dark. And fortunately, the guest house that I was living in, the main house, the owner had a dog who would come to my door every day. And he would just catch me like curled up on the floor, just bawling my eyes out. And I was just, I was losing it. I was losing so many faculties. And this dog was like the one thing I could see, like had love, a connection with. And I have a great family and all that, but I tend to keep, my own emotional reality to myself. So I was just in this process. And fortunately, I met an acupuncturist who diagnosed me. I was just going in there to try and stop the hair loss. That was what I was aiming for. And he then, discerned that my kidneys were really, really overtaxed, and went to a point where he said, you should be dead right now. Like this doesn't make sense. And fortunately at the time I was in Chinese medicine school, and I was also doing Qigong on the daily and really approaching it with herbs. So I was keeping myself ahead of it, but it didn't matter because I just kept taking in more and more every night. And it wasn't until I moved that I finally got to begin the process of coming back from that. And that was where I was juicing a lot and trying to find ways to bring my physiology back to balance, and began to realize there's a lot that I'm eating that's kind of shooting myself in the foot, or at least delaying my process. And I began to take out a lot of, that spectrum you were talking about. I definitely, I had to eliminate the fast foods, and I had to eliminate the kind of middle ground, or at least reduce it in order to bring in the healthy nutrients that I was ultimately in need of as I went through a process of clearing the mold. And then another huge key to that whole process was working with an Amazonian medicine technique called Kambo, or it's a medicine called Kambo. Are you guys familiar with Kambo?
No.
So Kambo is it's a frog from the Amazon that has no predators because its skin is poisonous. And what tribes in the Amazon will do is they will scrape the layer off of the skin, not harming the toad at all or the frog at all. And then they'll they'll congeal it into a paste. Then you burn holes on your body, like a little like moxa, like tss, tss, tss. And moxa is like, let's say like an incense, like just to break the blood skin barrier. And then you apply this toxin. And what it does as a poison is it goes into your body and it causes you to purge very aggressively. So what you do in advance of that is you'll fast for about 10 hours. You'll drink about 1.5 liters of water right before having the medicine applied. And then that goes into your system and it clears out the heavy metals, various toxins that we take on, and it's just in the air that we breathe, the food that we eat, as well other foreign entities that really don't belong in the system. So for me, it was an exceptional tool to get the mold completely out of my body. And the biggest win out of all of it was, and this was 10 years later. And I used to have this really strong low-grade anxiety where I would have social anxiety and I would feel out of place and I would feel very uncomfortable around people. And that wasn't my way when I was younger, but the mold created that. And to understand mold, just to backtrack a little bit, the way the mycotoxins work in the system is they thrive and grow more strong when your body's in a state of stress. So all of that process of losing my hairs, I was just extremely stressed out, and cortisol levels were I didn't ever have them checked, but I'm estimating they were exceptionally out of balance. And so the win that I found with the combo treatments, of which I did about a dozen over a period of time, was the brain fog and the cognitive functions that were basically creating this low-grade anxiety and stress were completely excavated. And I suddenly felt completely confident and calm and connected in ways that I hadn't realized I had lost. It was one of these real eureka moments where I just completely found that I had come back to myself, having been fractured by that process more than I realized.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It was a process. I've got the hairline to prove it. It was a journey.
What the heck? Yeah, that's crazy. Amazing journey.
For
Do
sure.
you find that you are still sort of sensitive or in tune with things attacking your system since then?
Probably. It's amazing because the different people have different experiences of mold as well, because our bodies can methylate at a level of let's say, a healthy immune system, a healthy gut biome can methylate a great deal more toxins or pathogens than someone who's out of balance and really, let's say has a messed up biome. They're going to be impacted more immediately. Whether they'll feel it or not is kind of the question that's at hand. And so for me, yeah, I'm super sensitive now I can feel if there's mold in a room, I'm sensitive to it. I'm not like bolt, I got to get out of here, but I'm just an awareness of, I know this sensation. So I do have a heightened sensation. In fact, that does kind of tie into where Brian and I met. There was a particularly rich mold presence where we met on the Big Island in Hawaii. And that was something that I was to answer, to kind of tie that to this subject matter, is I was hyper aware of the level of mold in this very old building on the Big Island in Hawaii where we had originally crossed paths.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like the craziest spidey sense.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
I guess I'm like an airport dog now, I can just walk into a room.
Yeah, right. All right. One more hard-hitting question, because this is super important. Which is better, pancakes or waffles?
Oh.
Wow. We have to be very careful here, Brian. I'm gonna let you go first.
Earmuffs. We love our children equally, but I will say that waffles changed the game. I definitely grew up a pancake fan, but the first time Ryan made waffles for me, and the only difference in our preparation is you add a little coconut oil to the batter to get the crispy outside, get yourself a waffle iron. That was a whole new leveled up experience. So I am firmly in the waffles camp.
Wow.
I know.
So what's amazing, and we didn't know this until the very first festival that we attended, where we literally presented for the first time brain cakes and prana cakes. We're sitting in a van, and this brother of ours that we met there, he shared that there's a whole like subsection of our society that perceives pancakes to be blasphemous, that they would never touch a pancake if you paid them, and they would rather starve to death because they're like in this like waffle aficionado, I guess, collective of people. Perhaps you could call it a cult. I don't know, but I'm not gonna argue with it though, because Brian's right. There's something about waffles that, and it could be the coconut oil and the crispiness. Even though I will say the pancakes I made this morning, I would never kick out of bed. So I'll be clear about that. And I don't have.
So you're saying you're having sex with pancakes?
I'm very poly in my pancake and waffle. Poly waffle pancake guy.
Yeah.
But the waffles do, like I do whenever we meet people, we talk about our stuff. We're like, you like the pancakes, you got to try the waffles. They're really next level.
Solid. Love it.
I think there are worse cults.
There are absolutely.
Yeah.
There are staunch believers that, again, like pancakes are blasphemous. And that experience where we were at this festival back in last fall was mind-opening to me. Like, no, there are gatherings. People get together, and there are Facebook groups about this, and people are really organizing around campaigns against pancakes.
And I think if I remember correctly, it's crazy. If I remember correctly, I think they have to take a vow. Like, yes, this collective will take a vow. They will never eat a pancake. It's like it's a thing.
It's an initiation.
Yeah, it's full on, like, it's a gang, I guess, probably more so than a cult. But yeah, and one thing too about the waffles, I think this is true of both, but because the added coconut oil keeps them a little more moist, a little less dry, I guess that's the same thing. But you can refrigerate these, and what Brian and I both do, when he flies back to Maui, just throw a couple waffles from the fridge in his bag, and that's your airport food. It keeps so fantastically. And so you got this like opportunity. It's not just something you got to take out of the waffle iron and eat immediately. You could also make it and then have it later in the day. It's a great way to play.
Solid. All right. So where can the fitheads find their brain cakes and prana cakes?
Yes. Everywhere online. No, our website and our Instagram, we're solely direct to consumer at this point in time, building our nascent loyal following. So our website is livingprana.co, and our Instagram is living_prana, which we've got the shop set up there, or you can pop over to our website as well. So plan will be to roll out to retailers at some point in time, but as of right now, we're really happy with where we're at, and the response has been amazing. So that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Love it. It was great chatting with you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Well, likewise. Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you to the Fitheads. If you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us out a whole lot. We will be reviewing your reviews in an upcoming episode. So get them in, because we're going to read them on an actual podcast. And we will see you next week.